The air in my mother's sun-drenched living room was thick with the scent of vanilla frosting, blooming peonies, and the effervescent promise of new life. It was a perfect day, almost aggressively so. Sunlight streamed through the large bay windows, illuminating the dust motes dancing like tiny, golden fairies. A sea of pastel pinks, baby blues, and mint greens washed over everything from the helium balloons bumping gently against the ceiling to the meticulously arranged stacks of presents threatening to overwhelm a table in the corner. This was my baby shower, the day I had been dreaming of since I was a little girl playing with dolls, and it was everything I had imagined. Perfect. I sat in the guest of honor armchair, a monstrosity of wicker and cushions my mother had unearthed from the attic and draped in white tulle, making me feel like a slightly overstuffed, beatific queen on her throne. My hand rested protectively on the taut swell of my belly, where my daughter, our little Amelia, was restlessly shifting. Every kick, every flutter, was a secret message of love just for me. Across the room, my husband, Liam, was a pillar of handsome, dependable strength. He was laughing with my father, his dark hair catching the light, his blue eyes crinkling at the corners. The sight of him, so at ease, so happy, sent a wave of profound love and gratitude through me. We had it all. The stable careers, the beautiful home we'd spent 2 years renovating, and now the final, most precious piece of our puzzle, our baby. My family was a picture of suburban contentment. My mother, Carol, a whirlwind of nervous energy and impeccable hospitality, flitted between guests, ensuring no glass was empty and no plate was without a miniature quiche. My father, Richard, was the quiet anchor, his presence a comforting, steady hum in the background. And then there was my sister, Chloe. Chloe was the beautiful, chaotic storm to my calm, predictable sea. 2 years younger, she had always been the one to push boundaries, to demand the spotlight. Where I had been a diligent student, she was a charismatic troublemaker. Where I had planned my life with careful precision, she lived on impulse and whim. Our parents called her spirited. I often thought of her as a firework, dazzling and exciting, but dangerously unpredictable. Despite our differences, a fierce primal bond connected us. I was her protector, her confidant, the one she called at 3 a.m. from a party that had gone sideways. And she, in her own way, was my escape, a reminder that life didn't always have to be lived within the lines. She arrived fashionably late, of course, sweeping into the room in a crimson dress that stood in stark, deliberate contrast to the pastel palette. Heads turned. They always did. She was breathtaking, with the same dark hair as Liam but with our mother's striking green eyes. "Sorry I'm late," she announced, her voice a theatrical boom that cut through the gentle chatter. The traffic was a beast. She came straight to me, her arms laden with an ostentatiously large gift bag from a high-end baby boutique. She knelt before my throne, her smile a little too bright, a little too sharp at the edges. "For my darling niece," she said, kissing my cheek. Her perfume, a musky, exotic scent, was overwhelming. "Only the best." "Chloe, you shouldn't have," I murmured, genuinely touched but also slightly embarrassed by the extravagance. "Nonsense, Ilara. You deserve the world." Her eyes flickered past me for a fraction of a second, landing on Liam. I saw him give a tight, almost imperceptible nod in her direction. I registered it, but filed it away as nothing more than a simple acknowledgement. Why would it be anything else? The party continued its gentle, happy course. My best friend, Maya, a rock of solid sense and sarcastic humor, sat beside me, helping me keep track of gifts and making quiet jokes that had me snorting with laughter. We played the requisite silly games, guessing the baby food flavor, measuring my belly with toilet paper. Liam was a good sport, gamely sniffing a jar of pureed peas and wrinkling his nose in mock disgust, drawing a fresh round of laughter from our friends and family. I watched him, my heart so full it felt like it might burst. He was going to be the most incredible father. Throughout my pregnancy, he had been my rock. He'd woken up in the middle of the night to get me pickles and ice cream. He'd massaged my swollen ankles without complaint, and he'd spent hours reading parenting books aloud to my belly, his deep voice a soothing rumble that always calmed Amelia's frantic kicking. He was my partner in every sense of the word. We were a team. As the afternoon began to wane and the sugar high from the three-tiered cake started to wear off, it was time for the main event, the opening of the presents. One by one, I unwrapped a cascade of tiny treasures. Miniature sneakers that made my heart ache with their smallness, soft as a cloud blankets. A menagerie of stuffed animals, and a beautiful handmade mobile from my mother that featured tiny, knitted stars and a crescent moon. With each gift, I would hold it up, and the room would erupt in a chorus of ahs. Liam sat on the arm of my chair, his hand resting on my shoulder, a constant, reassuring pressure. I glanced up at him, and his smile seemed a little strained. I chalked it up to the fatigue of socializing, the overwhelming nature of it all. I squeezed his hand where it rested on my shoulder, a silent message of, I love you. We're in this together. He squeezed back, but his touch felt distant. Chloe's gift was one of the last. I pulled out layers of tissue paper to reveal a ridiculously expensive cashmere baby blanket and a matching tiny cardigan, the color of cream. It was beautiful, far too beautiful for the inevitable spit-up and messiness of a newborn. Chloe, it's exquisite, I said, my voice thick with emotion. Thank you. She should have the best, Chloe repeated, her voice strangely flat. She was standing near the fireplace, a glass of champagne which she shouldn't have been drinking, as she was supposed to be the designated driver for her and our parents held loosely in her hand. Her gaze was fixed on Liam, and there was an intensity there that made the fine hairs on my arms stand up. My mother, sensing the party was winding down, clapped her hands together. All right, before we all float away on a sea of sugar, I think the mother-to-be would like to say a few words. All eyes turned to me. I felt a blush creep up my neck. Public speaking wasn't my forte. But this was different. This was my tribe, my people. I pushed myself up from the chair, Liam's hand instantly at the small of my back to steady me. I took a deep breath, my eyes scanning the room, landing on the faces of the people I loved most in the world. My friends, who had been with me through every awkward phase of life. My aunts and cousins, a loud and loving bunch. My parents, who had given me a foundation of unwavering love. My husband, the man who had completed my world. And my sister, my chaotic, beautiful sister. I don't even know where to begin. I started, my voice trembling slightly. Just thank you. Thank you all for being here, for showering our little girl with so much love before she's even arrived. Seeing all of you here today, it means the world to us. My eyes found Liam's. And to my amazing husband, I said, my voice catching. Liam, you have been the most incredible partner through all of this. My morning sickness, my weird cravings, my hormonal crying spells, a ripple of gentle laughter went through the room. You've handled it all with so much grace and love. I fall more in love with you every single day, and I cannot wait to watch you become a father to our daughter. Liam's face was pale. The smile he offered me didn't reach his eyes. They were wide, haunted. Before I could process his strange reaction, another voice cut through the air, sharp and brittle as breaking glass. What a beautiful speech, Alara. It was Chloe. She had moved to the center of the room, her stance defiant. The gentle, happy murmur of the party died instantly. A strange, heavy silence fell. Every single person in that room, 35 women and my two favorite men, turned to look at her. You always did know how to paint the perfect picture, Chloe continued, her voice dripping with a venom I had never heard from her before. It was a poison that seemed to physically alter the atmosphere, turning the sweet-smelling air acrid. The perfect house, the perfect career, the perfect husband, and now the perfect baby. You always get everything you want, don't you? My mother took a step forward. Chloe, darling, what are you talking about? You've had a little too much champagne. No, Mother, Chloe snapped, not taking her eyes off me. For the first time in my life, I haven't had nearly enough. I can't do this. I can't stand here and watch this charade. My heart began to hammer against my ribs. A frantic, trapped bird. What was she doing? This was my day. My one perfect day. Chloe, stop it, I whispered, my voice barely audible. My hand tightened on Liam's arm, but he felt stiff, unresponsive, like a statue. Stop what? Stop telling the truth. She let out a harsh, barking laugh that had no humor in it. She finally tore her gaze from me and locked it onto Liam. His face was ashen, a mask of pure terror. Tell her, Liam. Or do I have to do everything myself? Tell me what? The question screamed in my mind, but my throat was closed tight. The room was shrinking, the walls closing in. The smiling faces of my friends and family had morphed into masks of confusion and horrified curiosity. Liam just stood there, mute, his eyes darting between me and Chloe like a cornered animal. His silence was the most damning answer of all. Chloe's face twisted, a grotesque mixture of pain and triumph. She turned back to me, her green eyes blazing with a righteous, terrible fire. He doesn't love you, Elara, she said, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial, cruel whisper that carried to every corner of the frozen room. He might have once, but he's been in love with me for the last year. A collective gasp sucked the remaining air from the room. Someone dropped a glass, and the sound of it shattering on the hardwood floor was like a gunshot. My mind refused to process the words. It was like she was speaking a foreign language. An affair? Liam? With my sister? No. It was a joke. A cruel, twisted joke. Chloe was being dramatic, seeking attention as she always did. But then I looked at Liam. At the guilt that was a physical stain on his face. At the way he couldn't meet my eyes. The truth slammed into me with the force of a physical blow, knocking the breath from my lungs. It wasn't a joke. My legs felt like water. My vision tunneled, the pastel colors of the party bleeding into a blurry, nauseating gray. All I could see was Chloe's face, her lips still moving, delivering the final, heart-shattering blow. We've been together, she spat, the words landing like stones. In your house, in your bed, while you were sleeping upstairs, dreaming of your perfect little family. The room was utterly still. Not a breath, not a movement. It was a tableau of horror. My mother's hand was clapped over her mouth, her eyes wide with disbelief. My father looked like he had been turned to stone. Maya was on her feet, her face a furious snarl directed at Chloe. But I saw none of it clearly. My entire world had narrowed to two people, the sister I had adored and the husband I had trusted with my entire soul. The two pillars of my life, revealed to be rotten to the core. My sister's confession in front of everyone changed the way I saw my family forever. The carefully constructed facade of our perfect life, the thing I had cherished and nurtured, had been dynamited, leaving nothing but smoking rubble. And then, the final, unthinkable thought hit me, a question so vile I almost choked on it. The last year. She said they'd been together for the last year. I did the math, my pregnancy timeline flashing through my mind. A cold, slithering dread coiled in my gut, so potent it made me physically sick. My hand, which had been resting on Liam's arm, fell away as if his skin had burned me. I looked from his terrified face to Chloe's triumphant one, and then back again. The pieces of a puzzle I never knew existed clicked into place with horrifying clarity. His recent distance, Chloe's strange intensity, their shared, furtive glances. It had all been happening right in front of me, and I had been blissfully, stupidly blind. The strength that had been holding me up simply evaporated. The wicker throne, my mother's living room, the faces of my guests, it all dissolved. What she confessed made me collapse in tears. A sob tore its way out of my throat, a raw, wounded sound that seemed to come from someone else. My knees buckled. The world tilted on its axis and then went black at the edges. The last thing I heard before I crumpled to the confetti-strewn floor was my mother screaming my name. My perfect day had become a war zone, and my heart was the first and most devastating casualty. The return to consciousness was slow and syrupy, a reluctant ascent from a dark, merciful abyss. Sound came first, muffled and distorted as if I were underwater. A cacophony of panicked voices, the sharp, authoritative tone of my friend Maya, my mother's hysterical sobbing. Then came the physical sensations. The hard, unforgiving surface of the hardwood floor against my cheek, the faint, sickly sweet smell of cake frosting, and a dull, throbbing ache at the base of my skull. A single piece of blue confetti was stuck to my tear-wet eyelashes. I blinked it away, and the scene swam into focus. It was chaos. My guests were huddled in small, whispering clusters, their faces a mixture of pity and morbid fascination. They were trying to be discreet, but their eyes kept flicking towards the drama unfolding in the center of the room. My mother was kneeling beside me, trying to help me up, her face a mess of ruined makeup and frantic concern. "Alara, baby, can you hear me? Someone call 911. She doesn't need 911. Carol, she needs to get out of here." Maya's voice cut through the noise, fierce and protective. She was crouched on my other side, creating a physical barrier between me and the rest of the room. Her hand was a warm, steady pressure on my back. "Alara, honey, look at me. Can you get up? We're leaving." I looked past her, my eyes searching for them, and I found them. Liam was standing a few feet away, rooted to the spot, his face the color of chalk. He looked utterly broken, a hollowed-out man. He made a move toward me, his hand outstretched, but my father, who had been a silent, stoic statue until now, stepped in front of him. I had never seen my gentle, quiet father look so thunderous. His voice was dangerously low. "Don't you dare touch her." And Chloe was standing by the fireplace, her arms wrapped around herself. The triumphant blaze in her eyes had been extinguished, replaced by a flickering, uncertain horror. She looked like a child who had set a fire just to watch it burn, only to realize her own house was now engulfed in flames. For a fleeting, insane moment, I felt a pang of pity for her. Then the memory of her words, "In your bed," slammed back into me, and the pity curdled into something cold and hard. "I want to go home," I whispered, the words scraping my raw throat. The word home tasted like ash in my mouth. It wasn't a home anymore. It was a crime scene. With Maya's and my father's help, I was hoisted to my feet. The room spun violently, and I leaned heavily on Maya, my body feeling fragile and ancient. A path cleared for us as we walked towards the door. No one said a word. The silence was thick with shame and sorrow. It was a funeral procession for my life as I knew it. As I passed the gift table, my eyes caught on the creamy cashmere cardigan from Chloe. It looked obscene now, a symbol of the deepest, most intimate betrayal. I didn't look back. I didn't look at Liam's shattered face or Chloe's dawning regret. Couldn't. If I did, I knew the fragile shell of composure I was clinging to would disintegrate completely. The car ride to our house was silent. Maya drove, her knuckles white on the steering wheel, her jaw tight with a rage she was bottling up for my sake. I stared out the window, but I didn't see the familiar streets of our neighborhood. I saw a highlight reel of my lies. Liam kissing me goodbye in the morning. Chloe coming over for movie nights, curled up on the other end of the sofa. The three of us laughing together at a summer barbecue last year. How many of those moments were real? Had any of them been? The house looked the same from the outside. Tidy lawn, a pot of geraniums by the door, a welcome mat that read "Home Sweet Home." The irony was a physical pain. Inside, the air was still and cool. It felt violated, a sacred space that had been desecrated. Every object held a memory that was now tainted. The sofa where we'd snuggled, the kitchen where he'd made me breakfast, the staircase he'd carried me up on our wedding night. "I'm going to make you some tea," Maya said softly, her voice pulling me from my trance. "You go sit down." But I couldn't sit down. I walked, as if in a dream, through the living room and up the stairs. My feet carried me to the one room that had been my sanctuary, my place of pure, unadulterated joy. The nursery. I pushed the door open. It was perfect. We had just finished it last week. The walls were a soft, buttery yellow. A white crib stood against one wall, the star and moon mobile my mother had made hanging above it, waiting for tiny eyes to gaze up at it. A rocking chair sat in the corner, a soft blanket draped over the back. The shelves were lined with books and a few stuffed animals. This room had been the physical manifestation of my hope. Now it felt like a mausoleum to a life that had died an hour ago. I walked to the center of the room and slowly sank to the floor, my back against the crib. And that's when the dam broke. The tears I had been holding back came in a flood, hot and unstoppable. The sobs were violent, racking my entire body, shaking the very foundations of who I was. I cried for my stolen joy. I cried for my shattered trust. I cried for the husband I thought I had and the sister I thought I loved. I cried for my daughter, my innocent, unborn Amelia, who would be born into this wreckage. I wrapped my arms around my belly, trying to shield her from the poison that had just been injected into our lives. "I'm so sorry," I choked out, the words addressed to her. "I'm so sorry." I don't know how long I sat there, lost in a tidal wave of grief. An hour? 2? Time had lost all meaning. Eventually, the storm of tears subsided, leaving behind a cold, hollow emptiness. I felt scoured out, a vessel containing nothing but pain. I heard footsteps on the stairs, slow and hesitant. It wasn't Maya's confident tread. It was his. The nursery door creaked open. Liam stood in the doorway, his face ravaged. He looked older, diminished. All the charm and confidence that had defined him had been stripped away, leaving behind a weak, frightened man. "Elara," he began, his voice a hoarse croak. "Get out," I said. My voice was eerily calm, devoid of all emotion. It was the voice of a stranger. "Please, just let me explain." "Explain?" A bitter laugh escaped me. "Explain what, Liam? Explain how you and my sister have been systematically destroying my life for the past year? Explain the logistics of your betrayal? Was it easier in our bed, or did you prefer the guest room? Don't worry, I'm sure you'll have plenty of time to work out the details of your story together." He flinched as if I'd struck him. "It wasn't like that. It wasn't planned." "Oh, so it was spontaneous?" I pushed myself to my feet, my body aching with a weariness that went bone deep. I faced him, and for the first time I saw him clearly, without the filter of love and adoration. I saw the weakness in his jaw, the cowardice in his eyes. It just spontaneously happened, over and over again, for a year? While I was upstairs, growing your child. The word "year" hung in the air between us, heavy and toxic. He couldn't meet my eyes. "I never meant to hurt you," he whispered, the classic, pathetic refrain of the unfaithful. "You didn't just hurt me, Liam," I said, my voice rising with a cold, controlled fury. "You took a sledgehammer to my heart. You annihilated my trust. You desecrated our home. And you did it with my sister." My sister. The word was poison on my tongue. "There is no explanation that could ever make that okay. There is nothing you can say that will fix this." "I love you," he said, the words sounding hollow and meaningless. "I do." I was weak and she was there, and I was pregnant. I finished for him, the realization dawning with brutal clarity. I was tired and emotional and not the fun, easygoing wife anymore. "So you found a replacement, a more exciting, less encumbered version. And you didn't even have to leave the family to do it. How convenient." He had no answer. He just stood there, drowning in his own guilt. "I want you to pack a bag," I said, my voice flat and final. "And I want you to leave. I want you out of this house. Now. Elara, please." "Where will I go? Let's just talk about this." "You can go to a hotel. You can go to hell. Or you can go to Chloe." "Frankly, I don't care," I said, turning my back on him. "Just get out of my sight. If you are not gone in 20 minutes, I will start throwing your things onto the front lawn." I heard him hesitate, then the sound of his defeated footsteps retreating down the hall. I stood there, listening to the sounds of him opening drawers and a closet in our bedroomy bedroom, the sounds of him erasing himself from my life. Each sound was a fresh stab of pain. Maya appeared in the doorway, a mug of tea in her hand. She said nothing, just came and stood beside me, putting an arm around my shoulders. I leaned into her, letting her solid presence anchor me. A short while later, we heard the front door open and close. I went to the nursery window, which overlooked the driveway. I watched as Liam put a duffel bag into the trunk of his car. He stood there for a long moment, his head bowed, his shoulders slumped in defeat. Then he got into the car and drove away, disappearing down the street and out of my life. I didn't feel relief. I didn't feel sadness. I felt nothing at all. A profound, terrifying numbness. Later that evening, my parents arrived. My mother rushed to me, her face etched with worry, and tried to wrap me in a hug. I stiffened, and she drew back, hurt. "Oh, Ilara, my sweet girl. I am so sorry. I don't know what got into her. She's not herself." "Not herself?" I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. "Or is this exactly who she is and we've all just been making excuses for her entire life?" My mother flinched. "That's not fair." "Isn't it?" I turned to my father, who was standing by the door, his face a grim mask. "Did you know? Did you have any idea?" He shook his head, his eyes full of a deep, weary sadness. "No. I swear to you, Ilara, I had no idea." If I had, he trailed off, his jaw working. "What he did, what they both did, it's unforgivable. We have to fix this," my mother insisted, her hands fluttering nervously. "We're a family. Families get through things. You and Liam, you have a baby on the way. You can't just throw it all away. And Chloe, she's your sister." That was it. That was the line. The sentence I had heard my entire life, used to excuse every selfish act, every dramatic outburst, every time Chloe's chaos had bled into my carefully ordered world. "She's your sister." "She stopped being my sister this afternoon," I said, the words cold and clear as ice. "She stopped being my sister when she chose to sleep with my husband. And you, Mom, by asking me to fix this, by trying to smooth this over, you're choosing her. You've always chosen her. You've let her get away with everything, and this is the result. This is what happens when there are no consequences." My mother started to cry, silent, heartbroken tears. It was in that moment that the final piece of my old world crumbled. It wasn't just a confession about an affair. It had exposed the deep, rotten cracks in our family's foundation. My father, passive and non-confrontational. My mother, the enabler, so desperate to maintain the illusion of a happy family that she would sweep even the most heinous betrayals under the rug. My sister, the emotional vampire. And me, the fool who had believed in the illusion. My sister's confession hadn't just changed the way I saw her and Liam. It had changed the way I saw everyone. I was utterly, completely alone. My father walked over to my mother and put a hand on her shoulder. "Carol, she's right. This isn't something you can fix with a casserole and a family meeting. Just stop." He looked at me, his eyes begging for an understanding I couldn't give. "We'll go. Give you some space." After they left, the silence in the house was absolute. Pressed in on me, heavy and suffocating. Maya had cleaned up the remnants of the party food she'd brought back with us, and she stayed the night on the sofa, a silent guardian. I went back to the nursery. I sat in the rocking chair in the dark, the one Liam and I had picked out together. I rocked back and forth, my hands on my belly. The numbness was beginning to recede, and in its place, a new feeling was taking root. It wasn't happiness. It wasn't hope. It was something harder, fiercer. Determination. Amelia kicked, a strong, definitive thump against my hand. It wasn't a secret message of love anymore. It was a demand. A call to arms. She was real, she was coming, and she was depending on me. My heart was shattered. My family was a lie. The future I had meticulously planned was a pile of ashes. But in the ruins of that life, a new one would have to be built. A life for two. Just me and my daughter. It was a terrifying, desolate prospect, a path I never would have chosen. But as I sat there in the dark, in the beautiful room that now felt like a tomb, I knew one thing with absolute certainty. I would walk that path. For her. My shattered heart would have to learn to beat again, not for a husband or a sister or the illusion of a perfect family, but for the little girl who was counting on me to be her whole world. Because I was all she had now. And she was all I had left.